Many times throughout the tabletop role-playing game hobby, there is companies that try to redefine what sandbox gaming is. TSR did it in the 80s, and Pathfinder does it today with its Black Marches. In reality, the Black Marches is not a sandbox, it's a light railroad. You're stuck in a loop in a small area. You're restricted, you'll be forced into that loop. That's it. Force means railroad, not freedom. Let's look at Traveler. Old Traveler, which offers you an actual sandbox gaming experience. What is sandbox? Sandbox is the opposite of keeping you on a railroad. What is it to get off the railroad? It's complete freedom. There's no loop, no restrictions, no walls, and the person running it has to pretty much improvise, at every area that you want to go to. Oh, there's some small things. You can set up hooks, ideas, connections you can put in the start of the game, but really, the players lead the game. They take it wherever they want to take it. That's it. The only restrictions on the players is that which they put on themselves from their lack of maybe thinking. Right? But beyond that, they can go wherever and do whatever. That's a sandbox, and you have to play along with it. What you do in a sandbox is you let players lead, maybe take your hooks, right? But these aren't pre-planned adventure hooks. These are just ideas they can latch onto, and you still got to let them decide how they interact with the hook, and you got to improvise. The most you do between sessions is then take what you've improvised in, what they've done, and maybe do a bit of work, understanding that even that work might not be where they go. They might turn off and go somewhere else the next session, and they have the freedom to in a real sandbox. And a Pathfinder Black Marches game, you're stuck on a loop with your limits. You might want to call it a light railroad, but it is a railroad. It's just Pathfinder trying to redefine what the sandbox is. TSR did this when they understood the idea of sandbox adventuring could threaten the selling of their modules. So they redefined what a sandbox is into their module gameplay. You can see that with the Temple of Elemental Evil, which I recently covered. It is a railroad for the most part, but you got some, freedom to do what you want within the railroad, but it's all pre-made stuff. It's almost like optional railroad choices, but only a few. You're still going to be down a path. There's still an end result you got to go after. That's it. That's a railroad, right? And Pathfinder is no different with its Black Marches. It's a loop. It's a light railroad. Now, if you understand what true sandbox gaming is, you would understand that, and you wouldn't be tricked by the attempt to redefine what sandbox gaming is. So step one down. I explained to you what a railroad is compared to sandbox. Railroad is force. Light or not, it's force. In a loop, you're on a force. You have limits, boom walls, you got to stay on that. That's a railroad. Railroads can be hard railroads or soft railroads. Either way, it's force. That's all a railroad is. That's all it is. I want to be clear about this. Railroads just mean players have to sort of get on the track and go. And the track can be light, where they can somewhat turn off or on, or they got to stay straight on it. But either way, it's a track. It's the loop. It's either soft or hard, but it's a railroad. Sandbox gaming threatens Black Marches. It threatens the modules for TSR, because once you understand true freedom, and that's all about improvisation and creativity, it's all about building the adventure with the players, then you're fine. What about collaborative storytelling that they're going to pitch with Black Marches? What is storytelling? You're telling a story. Well, then the story emerges from what you're doing. That's not telling a story. Pendragon, you start the game initially trying to tell a story. Castle Falkenstein, you start the game trying to tell a story. DC Heroes, you start the game trying to tell a story from a comic book point of view, but you're trying to tell a story, not just a story emerges. You're doing it like in episodes or, different comics coming out. You're doing it in a line. You're trying to tell a story. When you're playing a game and a story can come from what you're doing, that's called a story emerging. That's not telling a story. You're not really collaborating at all on that end. You're just somebody running a game with black marches, and there's players. Now, what about the rotating factor? Well, first off, you got to know that Pathfinder is not a very successful game out with the public. It's played by a minority of people. The vast majority of people do not play with a rotating player list. That's a minority, at home, their group of friends that take sort of what they're doing for granted. It's as if they had that option. Most people in public don't, because it's so hard to get a game, even nowadays, that you hold on to your spot. I'll give it this. There's more consistent people showing up to games now than there were back in the 80s. It was hard. People really didn't understand what they had and took things for granted. People don't take it for granted as much anymore. Now, there's more old school gaming still happening in 2026. And you can see this from public areas to cons to everywhere. Why is that? Because Pathfinder and WotC D&D have a common problem. Producing people to run the game compared to the amount of people they draw as players. Oh, they might be popular for getting a lot of players. They're just not popular for developing game masters. In reality, most public gaming is never a rotating thing. And Pathfinder is not like some vast majority of gaming going on out there. It's just not. There is sandboxing going on. A lot of old school guys do not use modules. They still do pure traveler style sandboxing with D&D. And that's real sandboxing. And as much as we would like to, certain people would like to argue that there's a lot of people out there with miniatures doing certain things. There might be, but there's still more theater of the mind styles of game going on. And character development is even more important now and acknowledged now than it was back in the 80s. So more people in the public, that's where 90% of your players are. Because just like back in the 80s, 90% of the people coming into the hobby don't have a built-in friend group. They don't. We know this. They don't have a built-in friend group. Actually, it's hard to get together with people. That's why when people now latch onto a game, they stay there. They hold on to their spot. And they show up quite consistently, worried that if they don't show up, they're going to lose their spot. Now, if you're in the minority at home with your friends, and you're in a situation with Pathfinder, and your friends take it for granted what they have, they might not show up the next week. They're your friends. They take it for granted. And the minority always speaks loudest, always has the loudest voices. You'll always notice the silent majority is silent. That's why we call them the silent majority. The worst thing is for the loud minority is sometimes they assume to fill in gaps of what they don't know. Because they're not out there, they're playing with their friends at home. And like 10% of the hobby is doing that. Right? So they're at home with their friends and they assume things to fill gaps in because they don't know. They're not out like me, being a public game master, meeting all kinds of people, even in 2026, knowing exactly how the hobby works now. They're not. So what they do is they assume, and a lot of the YouTubers or people that are very loud are usually part of the minority. It's true from the old school to the new school. A lot of content creators do not represent the majority of people in any part of the hobby, because usually the loudest voices are people that, they're in a minority situation. They really are. But what they'll do is they'll get out there and they'll hear other people that are loud minority people like them saying the same thing, and they think, well, if you say it, I say it, that's what's being said, I must be right. They're not. So most gaming is not Railroad, to be honest, because most people don't use pre-made adventures or modules. A lot of people make it up as they go. Now, that might not be true with certain elements, like a minority of 5e people. When I say minority, because they don't produce that many DMs. Go to a convention. Go to any public play area, you'll notice 5e people make up a small minority of those out in the public gaming, and yes, they'll be doing some railroading. You get to certain parts of the old school, there's still a minority that constantly use modules. But most people in the old school, which is going to make up the majority of gamers and DMs, they sandbox, and I mean traveler style, pure old school sandbox. If you go to most other games, World of Darkness, Burning Wheel, that is more traveler, pure sandboxing improvisation. Like there's more sandbox improvisation, real non-railroad gaming going on outside of D&D and even with the D&D that's going on, which is mostly old school. There's just some people that are fooled by the companies. I totally get it. I feel bad for them. I'll hear them say, this is sandboxing, and players come in and out, and this is the way of the future. No, you're a minority. Your game is not stretched out that far. You barely represent anybody. The vast minority of people grab onto a game and stay there. And here's what they've discovered. We discovered it back in the 80s, but they know it just as well now. Character development is an important thing. It keeps people coming back to the table, makes you care, makes it matter. People hang on to their characters and develop them. You know, you'll see 5e people maybe doing live plays, trying to attract people, stuff like that. Don't confuse yourself when you see the guys willing to do live plays. Again, loud minority situation. Most people are not playing 5e. That's the honest truth. That's why 2024 books dipped in sales. A lot more 5e people watch Matt Mercer and his group rather than play. Because it just doesn't produce that many games. Pathfinder has the same outcome. It doesn't produce that many people to run it. And what's really funny is OSR, old school games, other games, World of Darkness still produces more people running games than Pathfinder and WotC does. That's always been a problem with WotC. We started noticing it with 3rd edition. 2nd edition was still going active at the time 3rd edition came out. It literally kept up with 3rd edition, and at certain points there was more 2E AD&D games being ran in almost any area from online to in public than 3rd edition. 2nd Ed outpaced 3.5. 2nd Ed kept up with Pathfinder and was even in, it outran 4th edition, and 2nd edition was still pacing very well when they started testing 5e D&D. But you have to get out in public and know this. And you have to understand that most people don't have a built-in friend group that's already gaming. That's why the majority, 90% of people in the hobby, end up in the public looking to strangers to game. So, let me remind you, what is a railroad so we can be clear, so there's no confusion. Don't let companies redefine what a sandbox is. A railroad is forced play, either a soft railroad, like the loop you see with Black Marches, or it's just hard forced. A sandbox is pure freedom. And most groups never loop in and out, right? Because they hold on to their spot because they don't take it for granted. Look, if you're at home in the minority of at-home groups with your friends and your friends just take what they have for granted, they might not show up the next week, and I can see how Pathfinder Black Marches might benefit you. And when you get out and hear from other minority people, I get that you hear from them and they have the same experience, and you think, well, I guess all my assumptions that filled in these gaps must be right. They're not. And see, I'm a public game master, so I'm out seeing the majority of people in the hobby, both online. Like I see where the online gaming is going, and in public. Real, pure sandboxing still happens today, quite often, right? It's a shame. We get into debates over this stuff because people assume things. It's a lot of assumptions. You're stuck in assumptions. And what they do is, a lot of people out there, they don't care about the truth. They're trying to win. They'll bring up other things, like, what about a show? How do you watch a show? Right away, if you tell me that, that means you're stuck in assumption land, and you want to win an argument because you have an agenda. And there's a lot of people with agendas in the hobby, like the storytelling people. Well, if you're a storyteller, it means you're telling a story. See, I can go for a walk, and you can tell a story from my walk. That's a story emerging from the activity of me going for a walk. Me going for a walk is not storytelling. Storytelling is telling a story. And we have games that actually do it. So we have games that will shine a light on the difference between the game where the story emerges because you're playing a game and the game where you actually tell a story. So when you get to a game like Pendragon that is initially trying to tell a story from the get-go, trying to have a story be told about a character in a novel way, you'll know the difference between Pendragon and Pathfinder and D&D. And you'll realize you're playing a game with Pathfinder, you're playing a game with D&D, there is no collaborative storytelling. The story simply emerges from the activity of playing the game. So if you want to call yourself a storyteller, you have to understand what it is. And there's a lot of people in the hobby that are just brain dead when it comes to this whole thing. Like, you think just telling them, if you're a storyteller, you're telling a story. When you play your Pathfinder game, are you telling a story or playing a game? You're playing a game. A story emerges from it. To tell a story is to actually sit down and tell a story. And there's only a few games that actually really initially start the game with, like, from what you do. Every action, every word is part of telling a story. That the storytelling is on par with the gameplay. Right? Even the gameplay can be secondary. Right? But you're actually trying to tell a story. When we start playing a game and you're running around doing the random stuff, you're not trying to tell a story. A story is going to emerge just like it emerges from me going for a walk. You shouldn't have to explain that to people. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. And they argue with you. No, it equals Jello. No, it doesn't. Storytelling is the telling part is really important. You're a storyteller, just think about the telling part. The telling part. You got to be telling a story to be a storyteller. If a story just emerges from your activity, that's not storytelling. It's common sense. It's not even debatable. To be a storyteller, you need to be telling stories. If I go for a walk every day, and you keep telling a story from my walk, because it emerges from the walk, right? You write down. I tell you, I get home and I'm like, okay, write that down. You write it down. It's a story emerging from my walk. I'm not a storyteller because I go for walks. It's like you're not a storyteller when you just play games without setting out to initially tell a story at every word, at every action. That's it. That's a big difference. And we actually have games out there that actually do storytelling. And they're different from the games where you just game and have a story emerge. And so we actually have examples of real games that do storytelling. So to confuse storytelling, that confuses me that people get confused by that. But yes, Black Marches is a railroad, a soft railroad. It is a company trying to redefine what a railroad, what a sandbox is by telling you a railroad is a sandbox. It's not. Even if there's some options of freedom, it's not complete freedom. And a sandbox game is complete freedom. And the majority of people do not play scatterbrain. They don't come in and out of games. The vast majority of people in the hobby hold on to their spots and show up consistently. And character development has become a very valuable, understood, pretty regular thing, where most people don't play Tom the Fighter just so they can get together with their friends that week. So again, you and your friend group make up less than probably 10% of the hobby now as you did back in the 80s. Though you talk loud, I get it, right? You always have.